Imagine 50,000 men halting their march as the sun sets over an unfamiliar, foggy forest. They are deep in hostile territory, miles from the nearest allied city, and completely exposed to the elements with no permanent walls to protect them. For most ancient and medieval armies, this was the most dangerous moment of a campaign. Setting up camp meant dropping your guard, and night raids or completely sacked camps were a common reality of war. The problem is biological. Sleep is the ultimate human vulnerability. It renders a trained, heavily armored soldier completely blind, deaf, and defenseless for hours at a time. The Roman military approached the problem differently, treating rest as a heavily engineered logistical operation. By refusing to accept the vulnerability of night, the Romans codified human necessity into a highly controlled process, converting their greatest daily weakness into a predictable tactical advantage. The Roman relationship with sleep began hours before sunset. While the main army was still marching, a team of advanced surveyors, called the mensores, rode ahead to measure and mark out the exact layout of the night's campsite. This carving shows Roman soldiers actively building fortifications. Every evening, the exhausted men would spend 3 hours building a castra, a fortified military camp surrounded by a trench roughly 3 meters wide and 2 meters deep. The excavated earth formed a massive defensive rampart on the inside. On top of that earthen rampart went the final barrier. Every single soldier carried 2 or 3 sharpened stakes, known as pila muralia, as part of his standard marching kit. These stakes were interlocked along the top of the mound, creating a wooden palisade around the entire perimeter. This macro-engineering eliminated the chaos and confusion that plagued other ancient forces, reliably converting an empty field into an organized, functioning fortress every single night. As this diagram shows, the layout inside those walls was strictly standardized. The intersecting main roads and central command tents were always oriented the same way. The standardized grid meant an exhausted soldier could walk to his exact assigned sleeping spot without searching. Zooming in from the camp's massive perimeter, the foundation of Roman rest was the contubernium. This was the atomic unit of the army, 8 men who ate, marched, fought, and slept together in a single shared tent. Their shelter was the papilio, a heavy tent made of calfskin leather stitched with waterproof seams. While the leather was heavy to carry, it was virtually indestructible and trapped the collective body heat of the 8 men inside. To survive the freezing, damp earth, the soldiers engineered ground insulation. They actively foraged for dry straw, ferns, or pine branches, layering them thickly across the dirt floor to create a physical barrier between their bodies and the cold ground. Each man also carried a sagum, a dense, high-quality wool cloak. Saturated with natural lanolin, the wool was highly water-resistant and functioned like a wearable sleeping bag, trapping body heat even in freezing northern European winters. This convex shape of the Roman scutum, or shield, served a dual purpose. At night, soldiers would place their shields at the tent entrance or position them with the curved side up to create an impromptu bed screen and a physical barrier against the wind and moisture. Inside the tent, gear like this larica segmentata plate armor was never worn to bed. The cramped space was strictly organized. Heavy armor and weapons were meticulously stacked right at the entrance, keeping the sleeping area clear, while ensuring a soldier could arm himself in total darkness if the camp was attacked. This combination of shared body heat, specialized materials, and strict gear organization maintained a survivable, battle-ready microclimate within the cramped leather walls. But while the camp went dark, it never truly slept. The night was divided into 4 strict watches, or vigiliae, each lasting about 3 hours. This rotation guaranteed that fresh guards were always manning the perimeter ramparts. To enforce this vigilance, the Romans used a fail-safe password system. Officers passed a wooden writing tablet, known as a tessera, from guard post to guard post, with the correct watchword inscribed to verify alertness. If a tablet went missing, or a sentry couldn't produce the watchword, the bureaucracy reacted immediately, triggering an investigation. The consequences for a failed post were absolute. Falling asleep on guard duty was a capital offense, punished by fustuarium. The sleeping guard was beaten or clubbed to death by the very men in his own unit. The logic behind this execution was mathematically cold. A single sleeping guard endangered the lives of every single person inside the camp. Because the risk of a night ambush was shared by the group, the fear and the punishment remained collective. This psychological engineering, enforced by absolute terror and mutual accountability, formed the invisible wall that allowed the rest of the legion to actually sleep securely. Long before dawn, in pitch blackness, the camp's sleep was severed by the sharp sound of a trumpet signal called the Diana. Instead of a slow morning, this triggered a controlled eruption of activity across the entire legion. In under 2 hours, the entire camp was systematically dismantled. Leather tents were rolled up, stakes were pulled from the ramparts, cooking fires were doused, and the fortified city was reduced back to an empty field. Looking at this marble bust of Julius Caesar, you can understand the pride Roman commanders took in their logistics. Despite campaigning across 3 continents, from misty British swamps to arid Syrian deserts, properly constructed Roman marching camps were almost never successfully breached at night. This engineered sleep system allowed the Roman army to march further, fight harder, and make better decisions under pressure than an exhausted enemy. Roman superiority relied on this uncompromising engineering of human rest. Every night of secure sleep inside those leather walls was a direct investment in the next day's conquest.